Have you ever watched your whole world collapse through the blue glow of a phone screen at 2 in the morning? I saw the message flash across my wife Sarah's locked phone. A name I didn't recognize, marked followed by a sentence that stopped my heart. Can T stop thinking about last night? You were incredible. The phone was resting on the nightstand, a dark mirror reflecting the ceiling of our Chicago brownstone bedroom. For 10 years, that room had been our sanctuary. Now, it felt like a tomb. I stared at the words, the casual intimacy of them, the sheer arrogance. Last night she'd told me she was at a networking dinner for her firm, a late one on the north side. My mind raced, replaying her excuses, her tired smiles, the way she'd been just a little too distant lately. It was all there, a puzzle I'd been too blind, too trusting to solve. And in that suffocating silence, with her sleeping peacefully beside me, I knew nothing would ever be the same again. My life as I knew it was over. The only question was what I was going to build from its ashes. The betrayal didn't just sting, it hollowed me out. Sarah and I had built a life together on the foundation of what I thought was absolute trust. We'd renovated that brownstone on a quiet street in Lincoln Park, pouring our savings and our weekends into it. We hosted dinner parties where our friends would toast to us, calling us the perfect couple. It was a humiliating lie. Her strange behavior started subtly. Late nights at the office became more frequent. Her phone, once left casually on the kitchen counter, was now always in her pocket or face down beside her. When I'd ask about her day, the answers became vague, polished summaries that offered no real detail. She was a ghost in our own home, her laughter brittle, her touch fleeting. She'd become cold, a master of manipulation. If I questioned her, she'd turn it back on me. "Why are you so insecure all of a sudden?" she'd ask, her eyes wide with feigned innocence. "Don't you trust me?" She made me feel like the villain for simply noticing the cracks in our foundation. She and whoever this Mark was felt untouchable, wrapped in a bubble of their own deceit while I was left on the outside questioning my own sanity. The breaking point came a few weeks later. ID planned a surprise dinner for our anniversary at a small Italian place in River North where ID first proposed. I waited at the table for an hour. My calls went to voicemail. Finally, a text came through. "So sorry. Got held up with a client crisis. Have to take a rain check. Love ya." The lie was so lazy it was insulting. I paid for the untouched bread and my single glass of wine and walked out into the rain-slicked Chicago streets. I drove home, my knuckles white on the steering wheel, my heart a cold, dead weight in my chest. I sat in my car across the street from our house, the warm lights of our home looking like a scene from someone else's life. That's when a sleek black Mercedes pulled up. A man in a tailored suit got out of the driver's side, walked around, and opened the passenger door for Sarah. It was Mark. He leaned in, and they shared a long, lingering kiss under the dim glow of the streetlight. There was no mistaking it. It wasn't a friendly goodbye. It was the kiss of a lover. I watched him get back in his car and drive away, and I watched my wife, the woman I'd given my life to, walk up the steps to our front door, completely unaware that I had seen everything. In that moment, something inside me shattered. The grief was a physical force, a wave that knocked the air from my lungs. But as the grief subsided, it was replaced by something else. Something cold, hard, and sharp. It was the birth of a plan. From that night on, I was a different man. The broken husband was gone, replaced by a strategist. I didn't confront her. I played the part of the loving, slightly oblivious husband, all while my mind worked like a machine, gathering proof. I hired a private investigator, a grizzled ex-cop who operated out of a dusty office in the Loop. He was expensive, but worth every penny. Within a week, I had a folder thick with evidence. Photos of Sarah and Mark checking into the Peninsula Hotel off Michigan Avenue, credit card receipts from lavish dinners I'd never been invited to, timestamps of their late-night calls. The pie even got me a name for his company, a high-powered real estate developer with a notorious reputation. They weren't just careless, they were arrogant. They believed they were above consequences. While Sarah was busy living her double life, I was setting my traps. I started quietly moving my personal savings into a separate account. I consulted a shark of a divorce attorney, a woman known for dismantling her opponents in court. We mapped out a strategy, not just for the divorce, but for justice. The final piece of my plan fell into place when Sarah came home one evening, her face glowing. She sat me down on the couch, her hand on my knee. "I have incredible news," she said, her voice trembling with fake emotion. "I'm pregnant." She held up a positive pregnancy test, her eyes searching mine for the joyous reaction she expected. I felt nothing but ice in my veins. I knew with mathematical certainty that the baby couldn't be mine. The PIS report had detailed a 2-week business trip she'd taken with Mark. The timing was perfect. And I knew this was the weapon they thought would secure her future. It would be her downfall. The stage 4 of the final act was our annual charity gala, an event Sarah meticulously planned for months. It was her crowning social achievement, held in a grand ballroom at the Drake Hotel. 200 of Chicago's elite were their colleagues, friends, and of course Mark and his oblivious wife. Sarah was radiant in a silver gown, the picture of a happy, successful, expectant mother. She floated around the room, accepting congratulations, her hand resting protectively on her small baby bump. She thought she had one. She had my home, my reputation, and soon my money to raise another man's child. About an hour into the event, the host called for a moment to honor the event's organizer. Sarah walked to the stage, beaming under the spotlight. She gave a flawless speech, thanking everyone for their generosity. She ended by looking directly at me. "And to my wonderful husband," she said, her voice thick with saccharine sweetness. "Thank you for your endless support, and for the beautiful new life we're about to bring into this world." The room erupted in applause. That was my cue. I walked to the stage, took the microphone from her, and smiled. "My wife is indeed an incredible planner," I began, my voice calm and steady. "She plans everything down to the last detail." I looked out at the silent, expectant crowd. But sometimes, even the best-laid plans have complications. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a single sheet of paper. It was a DNA test result, not for the unborn child, but for me. A test showing I was sterile, a fact confirmed by a doctor months ago after we'd supposedly struggled to conceive. I held it up. "Sarah's pregnant. It's true, but I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding." I turned to her, my smile gone. "The baby isn't mine." I then pulled out a second Documentan ultrasound picture, but it wasn't hers. It was a generic one from the internet. And when I showed her this ultrasound, one I found online, she started crying with joy, telling me how much the baby looked like me. A gasp rippled through the room. Sarah's face went from confusion to stark white terror. Her eyes darted to Mark, who looked like he'd been turned to stone. His wife was staring at him, her expression crumbling. "The truth," I said, my voice dropping, "is that my wife has been having an affair with Mr. Mark Renshaw over there." I gestured with the microphone. "The baby is his?" Chaos erupted. The public humiliation was absolute. Sarah stood frozen on the stage, her perfect world imploding in real time. Her social circle, her career, her reputation all incinerated in a single, glorious moment of truth. She finally broke, her sobs echoing through the microphone I still held in front of her face. It was the sound of complete and utter ruin. I filed for divorce the next day, citing adultery. The evidence was overwhelming. The judge awarded me the house and the majority of our assets. Mark's wife also filed for divorce, and his company's board launched an investigation into his misuse of corporate funds for his affair. They were both destroyed, legally, financially, and socially. I never saw Sarah again after the final court date. I heard she moved out of state, away from the wreckage of the life she'd torched with her own hands. Sometimes late at night I walk through the quiet rooms of my house, the house I fought to keep. It's no longer a tomb, it's just a place. The ghosts are gone. The silence that once suffocated me is now just peace. I poured myself a drink and stood by the large window overlooking the dark, quiet street, the same one where I'd watched her kiss him goodbye. Vengeance isn't loud. It's the profound, deafening silence after the storm has passed. If you genuinely enjoy our stories, please subscribe to the channel. Tell us where you're from and what time it is right now. It's always fascinating to know how far our story flows. Thanks for listening.